This is part two of my series on why we have in the United States and other countries a kakistocracy, or a government that's led by people who are the worst or nearly the worst people, or unqualified to govern. And in the last part, I talked about how our social reality is formed by the use, among other things, of language and of discourse, of signs, creating signs. And in this episode, I will be talking in more detail about the power associated with production of signs, the broadcast of them, and the shaping of them. So, in late medieval times, in Renaissance times, it was recognized that there was something called the fourth estate. So, this is a fourth power in society, in that period of time, the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners. So, the fourth estate, the media, the journalists of the time were considered to be a power. And this is something that often is obscured by our consumption of media. We see the world through media. So as like fish, in a way, we don't, not seeing water, we don't see often the media that we're imbibing the world through. We think of our media diet as real, or we tend to do that. And what media does is it generates lots of discourse and images, and it broadcasts to them, and it can shape our reality through what's called the frame of that discourse. So we are seeing like these fish swimming in the water and not seeing the water. We are seeing the images and the words that are coming at us, but we are often not seeing the frame and how it is shaping our view of the world. So as I was saying, language is something that we perform, that we have agency over, but at the same time, we are awash in all of this discourse that comes from media. So it takes resources and money to broadcast out these messages, this discourse, in the form of newspapers, books, television, transmissions, and also in the internet, the use of the internet, and then also the programming of algorithms in the social media era. So people who are power hungry and also have money can acquire those resources and build them up, as did Rupert Murdoch, and create an empire that shapes people's ideas about the world, and in a way, in this case, toward a right-wing vision that is Rupert Murdoch's vision. And the Murdoch empire has properties all over the world. It's particularly strong in the Anglophone world, but that world, because of its military and economic power, has in turn shaped lots of other places in terms of their political assumptions and environment. And so Murdoch has always been this right-wing ideologue, essentially, in the guise of someone who is informing people, and through the frame of the discourse, shaping people's ideas and distracting them with, among other things, sensational stories, but at the same time embedding in that a political message, often hidden from people who are not thinking about it. And in the German speech area, Axel Springer is also a similar figure as is Rupert Murdoch, with the same idea about shaping people's political ideas through the ownership of media, through sending out messages, discourse, signs, the transmission of signs to shape people's view of the world. And in the 19th century, late 19th century, we had also the equivalent, in a way, of Murdoch here in the United States in the form of William Randolph Hearst, who also was shaping public perception of politics, and through his ownership of newspapers and his use of, among other things, yellow journalism, which was considered to be a violation of the ethics of journalism, but nevertheless was a way that he sold papers and increased the size of his empire. And the grandfather of the Koch brothers was also the owner of a newspaper, who was able to use his positioning of that newspaper, which was a small regional paper in Texas, to create a small empire that helped shape the local real estate market, among other things, in that area of Texas. Now, our current Kakistocrats are also avid media users and have magnified their political power by the use of media. Elon Musk acquired Twitter in 2022. He was a addicted, and still is an addicted user of that platform, to constantly transmit messages, signs, send them out to people to try to shape the reality around him in a way that is destructive. But nevertheless, he has done this through also now owning Twitter. And Trump, prior to Musk's ownership, had used Twitter and also other media outlets to shape reality around him, to constantly send out messages. He, like Musk, is a compulsive message sender and talker, and also someone who has controlled to some degree his image, or honed his image to appeal to his base. And Trump then created his own social media platform to continue to try to shape and communicate with that base. And this platform is also a powerful media platform that has been contested, in part because of the way in which it undercut some of the assumptions of the current media environment in the United States, and also communicated to people about what was happening in Palestine, the genocide against the Palestinian people. And it has become a football and a property which is supposed to be sold off to maybe Larry Ellison, or I hope not, but Elon Musk. So it is also a powerful tool to shape through the frame, in a way, the way people see the world. And we have here, in a way that is a contrast to, for instance, Murdoch or some other media moguls, we have with Trump the use also of the power of the state, and also efforts to use the courts to attempt to shut down the media and dampen speech. So an anti-free speech movement, while claiming to be for free speech, but by both him and Musk, that is potentially extremely dangerous. And this has also decreased the U.S.'s World Press Freedom Index, in part because of the suppressive force of the way in which Trump has been threatening media outlets, and the way they have complied with that. And we also have the threat of the change of libel laws by efforts by Trump allies to challenge by the Supreme Court the Times versus Sullivan defamation rule that has protected the media from lawsuits by the powerful and rich for their reporting. So we've had examples of journalists and also owners of journalistic platforms who have done heroic work in exposing the powerful. Here we see on this page of films that are about journalism, that All the President's Men, the exposure of the Nixon, corruption that and Watergate that occurred in the early 1970s, but also Citizen Kane, that's about Hearst. So we have both the journalism that challenges power, but also journalism that reinforces power. So our current group of two Kakistocrats that are obviously trying to make life worse here in the United States are people who send out lots of messages, often, as I observed, lying. And this is an observation that Musk has tweeted 4,200 times almost in the last 30 days. So they are trying to shape our reality to try, among other things, to get away with something, to also hide actions that are happening by other people. But that we need to understand what they're doing, and also create our counter strategies and counter narratives and counter discourse, counter language to fight this and to defeat it.